Welcome back. Through all the rigors of being an educator, we can sometimes forget that our students are people too. Not in a malicious way, but we can get so bogged down with data and responsibilities that we can lose perspective sometimes. Taking a moment to remember that we are impacting lives with every action we take is important. Let's take a look at some ways we can ensure we view students as people, not just learners. Welcome back. So let's jump right into viewing students as people, not just learners. So we're going to look at the overview and purpose, look at the importance, look at the mindset and considerations. We'll view some strategies and then some keys to remember. So to start off with, in keeping with viewing the art of teaching, we're looking at building human-centered classrooms, viewing students as human beings, as people. They bring prior knowledge, they bring thinking, they bring their own heart, their own mind, their own personality to the classroom. And we have to, as teachers, view them in that perspective. You know, they're not little robots, they're not little, pieces of clay that we mold. That's not what we're doing. They bring their own perspectives to the classroom. And when we as teachers embrace that, we can find that we can be much more effective. Children are not scores, they're not problems, they're not headaches, statistics, and they're not temporary. So what's the purpose? We want to emphasize whole child approach, build relationships, and create empathetic classrooms. So the importance, as we stated, students bring experiences, emotions impact learning, relationships drive success, and every interaction, good or bad, has an impact on that child. So the mindset shift. We want to shift from test scores to individuals, right? It's not just about, how do I get this kid to pass the state test, or how do I get this kid to pass this test that I'm giving? It's more than that. It's more than that. We want to look at them as individuals and not just performance scores. And we want to transition from viewing them as problems to human beings, right? So everybody has their own issues, but for some reason, when it comes to the classroom, it's amplified. It is, it's one teacher, 30 students. Everybody's bringing their own little nuance to the classroom. It can be overwhelming, but we have to step back as educators and view these students as human beings rather than, the problems that we perceive that they bring to the classroom. It's a different mindset shift, and it's important. And that's part of the art of teaching, something that we have to reiterate and remind ourselves of. So what are some key considerations? When looking at students as human beings, as more than just learners, looking at them as people, we consider their culture, some of their socio-emotional needs, possibly past traumas, their learning differences, their student voice. What do they bring to the table? What is their opinions? What are their opinions? What are their perspectives? How do they view things? We want to look at some of their exceptionalities, experiences, and abilities. All of that, when we can do all of that and incorporate all of that, we will find that our approaches, our classroom cultures, our school cultures are much more improved, as well as the students are more engaged because they feel a part of the process. They are not just a number or another statistic. So some of the barriers to, viewing students as people rather than learners: time constraints. Gilbert, I just don't have enough time for this. I got to get this done. I got to get this done. But when you stop and think about your purpose as an educator, we're impacting these kids' lives. We're trying to prepare them for, their futures and give them opportunities. So I can't look at those time constraints. I have to stop and take the time. Otherwise, I'm going to be taking the time to solve problems that could have been addressed early on. Testing pressure. This is an external piece. testing pressure, got to get those scores up, But when you stop and work with kids where they are and respect them for who they are, you can build stronger relationships. You can get more achievement out of them. You can motivate them more. And thus, the testing scores can go up because they're actually learning. This one here is touchy, but biases, right? We all have biases. It doesn't matter what race you are, ethnicity you are, gender you are, non-gender that you are, social economic status, it doesn't matter. There are biases present. And if we're honest enough with ourselves as educators to recognize those biases and then address them, we can address them, right? If we ignore them, they just become bigger and bigger problems. And then lack of structures. Oftentimes, we have structures that are in place for, the learner, not necessarily the person, right? So lack of structures that address the human-centered classroom can be a barrier to this process. So what do we want to do? We want to build relationships. We greet students, learn their names, check-ins with them, show interest, genuine interest. So some of these are some of the aspects that we talked about. If you watch the other video in regards to the teacher as the art of teaching, some of these things are, interrelated, and that's perfectly fine, but we want to greet students at the door, use the threshold, learn their names. There shouldn't be a student you don't know their name. And this is kind of harder at the older levels, middle school, high school, where you may have multiple periods that you have to deal with. I remember teaching, in high school, and I would have 6 periods, so I have 25 kids, 6 periods, that's a lot of kids, right? But I had to take the time to learn who I was teaching, because it doesn't matter if I don't understand who I'm teaching, I'm not really teaching, right? I'm just going over material. Get it if you can. That's not the approach we want to, champion. Doing check-ins, whether using proximity, whether we do the check-in at the door, whether it's a short survey, we want to do check-ins to find out where the students are, what they're thinking, what they're going through, so that way we can address and adjust our instruction accordingly. And then you show a genuine interest in their progression and growth. So another way to view students as people and not just learners, create safe environments. You want to build trust, encourage respect, validate experiences, show genuine care, foster inclusion, and celebrate diversity. Fostering students' voice. Fostering students' voice is a great way to build human-centered classrooms. Choice in their work, right? You can do a pen and paper activity. You can do a digital activity, or you can do a kinesthetic activity. The concept is multiplication. I have 3 different opportunities for you. You pick which one you want to work with today, right? Surveys to find out what students want to do, surveys to find out their interests, surveys to find out how they learn best, get student feedback. They're going to give it to you whether you want it or not, right? So you might as well use it in a constructive manner. They're going to tell you what they think, especially if you have the little ones. They're going to tell you straight up what they think. So use that feedback in a constructive manner, and then allow for student perspectives. So another way we can foster building human-centered classrooms is practicing empathy. Pause before reacting. I'm guilty of it in the past, sometimes even now. I mean, sometimes, you just, maybe you're having a bad day, and the thing that normally would have slid past you, you wouldn't have worried about it, because you're having a bad day as a teacher, you know what? You react immediately. Sometimes we just need to pause. Not every battle is worth fighting. Ask questions. What do you think? How are you feeling? and then listen actively. Sometimes we ask questions like, oh yeah, I asked the kids, but we weren't listening. We don't listen. Sometimes because we view the kids as, little people, and, they don't know about the real world, this, that, and the other. We're not really listening to them. We want to tell them what they should be thinking. No, listen. Let's listen actively. Let's hear what they have to say. Another way is to integrate SEL, right? Teach self-awareness, teach reflection, teach collaboration skills. And we have a video, if you need it, in regards to SEL. We also have another one coming up, breaking down the different elements of SEL, starting with self-awareness. So check out those videos if you need more information about how to integrate SEL into your classroom. So what are the benefits of building human-centered classrooms, right? Viewing students as people, not just learners. What are the benefits? The student benefits are increased engagement, a sense of belonging, increased confidence, and ultimately increased achievement. Because when they're engaged, they have a sense of belonging, they have confidence, they're willing to try, they're willing to learn, they're willing to push through those tough times in order to achieve. So going back to viewing them as test scores, if you stop viewing them as test scores, right, and statistics, and focus on engaging, creating a sense of belonging, and increasing their confidence, you'll end up getting increased test scores. You will, because the students are willing to learn. What are the teacher benefits? You have better relationships, increased job satisfaction. I put that as number one. When students have a sense of belonging, your day goes better. When students are achieving, your day goes better. And ultimately, your job satisfaction is increased. And then you have fewer disruptions. A lot of the disruptions are because students are ignored. They want your attention. But instead of giving, and the crazy part is, they'll take whatever attention you give, positive or negative. If they have to act a fool to get your attention, that's what they're going to do. That's just the nature of things, right? So if you are creating these human-centered classrooms, you're focusing on the students as people, not just learners, you decrease the disruption. I'm not saying 100% of your disruptions are going to go away. That's not what I'm saying. But you have fewer of them, which allows you to focus on the achievement of the class as a whole. What are the school benefits? You have increased positive culture, better attendance. I don't want to miss school. Why? Because they view me as a person. They know who I am. They want the best for me, not just, I'm not just another number. So I'm willing to go, right? A lot of times when you dig deep into attendance statistics, you find that there are specific causes for the lack of attendance. It's not just external home environment that causes poor attendance. Sometimes the kids don't want to go. They're not motivated to go. They don't want to be there. So by focusing on building human-centered classrooms and viewing students as people, not just learners, you decrease the hesitation to come into the school, and you increase their sense of belonging. You create a welcoming and safe environment, and they don't mind and sometimes want to be there. And you create a stronger community. Just a quick quote: students remember how you made them feel. Pause the video for a second. Think about that. And just think about today, right? Think about today. Think about how you might have made students feel today. So some keys to remember: relationships before rigor, right? We want to establish those relationships because when it gets tough, we can pull on those relationships. If all we're focusing on is achievement, when the times get tough, the kids looking at it like, so what? Who cares? You see the importance, you know the importance, but it's not translated to the kid. They're like, all you care about is achievement. I don't care about that. So by building those relationships, you can gradually increase rigor and focus on rigor, but you got to establish the relationship first. Behavior is communication. You are communicating what you think, how you feel about them, how you perceive them on a daily basis, whether you know it or not. So you might as well change your behaviors and focus your behaviors on viewing them as people, creating those human-centered classrooms, because that way you're utilizing your behavior in a positive manner. And connections drive success. The more we can relate, the more we can connect, the more willing and open they are to learn what it is that we have to teach. And we're going to do a little deviation here. Take the first steps, right? So we usually end with keys to remember. This time we want you to take some first steps. Learn one new thing about each student, okay? Do not cheat. Do not say, oh, well, I can name one thing about each student. No, that's not what we're talking about. Make it intentional. Learn one new thing about each student that you have. That's all. Okay. And then implement one strategy, whether it's SEL, whether it's building a safe environment, whether it's fostering relationships. Pick one of the strategies we talked about and implement that one strategy. Do it on a consistent level and see what your results are. So we hope that was helpful. Remember, students are living in a real world already, and our actions help shape how they view that real world. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. See you next time.